Before we begin the first formal item, let me take the opportunity to introduce your directors, members, and I'm going to do this in order of the VM Group directors and then those other directors that are also here from the various subsidiaries. I'm going to ask the directors to stand as I introduce them, and I'll keep moving quickly so we won't spend a lot of time on that. But let me introduce you to Maurice McNaughton, Maurice, Michael McAnuff-Jones, and Michael is also chairman of VM Pensions, and Brian Golson, and Brian is chairman of VMBS, and of course you have Courtney Campbell and myself, Courtney. The VM directors that are not here in person with us but are online are Jeannie Robinson Foster, Matthew Wright, and Sandra Shirley Oxley. The other directors across the group that are here in person, and I thank them for being here, our newly minted, or newest minted, I should say, Director Dennis Cohen of VMFG, Dennis. Colin Wharf, all the way from Trinidad, and Colin was formerly a VMG director as well. Maya Waldron, chairperson of VMTS, chairman, chairwoman, chairperson, right? Okay. And we have Lisa Bell from VM Pensions. And there are a couple of executive directors who you will see on the management team as well. Frederick Williams, Peter Reed, and Rez Burchison, right? I think I got everybody. Paul Elliott, Paul, right. Another director that's in person, who is sitting behind the floors so I don't see him, is Milton Samuda from VMIL, Milton. And VMBS as well. Other directors that are online, Maria Robinson from VMIL, Michael Boyne from the VM Foundation, Del Cooper from VMF UK, Keith Jennings from VMFG, Paul Andrews from VMF UK as well. So thank you all for joining us. And members, these are some of your directors, not all of them, but many of them, and I thank them for being here. The first item on the agenda is the presentation of the auditor's report and statement of accounts for the year ended 31st December 2024, as well as the director's report. Damian Reed from KPMG, Damian, auditor of the VM for the VM Group, will now come forward and present the auditor's report and statement of accounts. Damian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. I'll be taking you through the independent auditor's report. Can be found on page 118. Now, the auditor's report today comprises of two main sections: the report on the financial statements and also report on the additional matters as required by the Jamaica Companies Act. I'll now start with our presentation of our report on the financial statements. Independent auditor's report to the members of VM Group Limited. Opinion. We have audited the financial statements of VM Group Limited, the company, comprising the separate financial statements of the company and the consolidated financial statements of the company and its subsidiaries, the group, as set out on pages 120 to 189, which comprise the group's and company's income statements, statements of comprehensive income, changes in equity, and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes comprising material accounting policies and other explanatory information. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial position of the group and the company as at December 31st, 2024, and of the group's and the company's financial performance and cash flows for the year then ended, in accordance with IFRS accounting standards as issued by the International Accounting Standards Board, IFRS accounting standards, and in the manner required by the Jamaican Companies Act. Basis for opinion. We conducted our audit in accordance with international standards on auditing, ISAs. Our responsibility under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibility for the audit of the financial statement section of our report. We are independent of the company in accordance with International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, including International Independent Standards, ISBA code. We have fulfilled our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with ISBA code. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Other information. Management is responsible for other information. Other information comprises the information included in the annual report, but does not include the financial statements or our auditor's report thereon. The annual report is expected to be made available to us after the date of our auditor's report. Our opinion on the financial statements does not cover the other information and will not be expressed any form of assurance conclusion thereon. In connection with our audit of the financial statements, our responsibility is to read the other information identified above when becomes available, and in doing so, consider whether other information is materially inconsistent with the financial statements or our knowledge obtained in the audit, or otherwise appears to be materially misstated. When we read the annual report, if we conclude that there is a material misstatement therein, we are required to communicate the matter to those charged with governance. Responsibilities of management and those charged with governance for the financial statements. Management is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements that gives a true and fair view in accordance with IFRS accounting standards and the Jamaican Companies Act. For such internal control as management determined is necessary to enable the preparation of the financial statements that are free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error. In preparing the financial statements, management is responsible for assessing the company's ability to continue as a going concern, disclosing as applicable matters relating to going concern and the use of the going concern basis of accounting, unless management either intends to liquidate the company or cease operations, or has no realistic alternative but to do so. Those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the group's financial reporting process. Auditor's responsibility for the audit of the financial statements. Our objective are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are, as a whole, are free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with ISAs will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. Misstatements can arise from fraud or error, are considered material if individually or in aggregate they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decision of the users taken on the basis of these financial statements. As part of our audit in accordance with ISAs, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We also identify and assess the risk of material misstatement of the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error, design and perform audit procedures responsive to those risks, and obtain audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omission, misrepresentation, or the override of internal control. We also obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the group's internal control. We also evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies and policy use and reasonableness of accounting estimates and related disclosure made by management. We also conclude on the appropriateness of management's use of the going concern basis of accounting, and based on the audit evidence obtained, whether a material uncertainty exists relating to events or conditions that may cast significant doubt on the company's ability to continue as a going concern. If we conclude that a material uncertainty exists, we are required to draw attention in our auditor's report to the related disclosure in the financial statements, or if such disclosures are inadequate, to modify our opinion. Our conclusions are based on the audit evidence obtained up to the date of our auditor's report. However, future events or conditions may cause the company to cease to continue as a going concern. We also evaluate the overall presentation, structure, and content of the financial statements, including disclosures, whether the financial statements represent the underlying transaction and events in a manner that gives a true and fair view. We also obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding the financial information of the entities or business activities within the group to express an opinion on the consolidated financial statements. We are responsible for the direction, supervision, and performance of the group audit. We remain solely responsible for our opinion. We communicate to those charged with governance regarding, among other matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit and significant audit findings, including significant deficiencies in internal controls that we identify during the audit. I'll now turn to our report on additional matters as required by the Jamaica Companies Act. We have obtained all the information and explanation which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purposes of our audit. In our opinion, proper accounting records have been maintained so far as appear from our examination of those records, and the financial statements which are in agreement therewith give the information required by the Jamaican Companies Act in the manner required. KPMG Chartered Accountants, Kingston, Jamaica, April 30, 2025. Thank you.
So Damien, all that to say, we're good. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Damien. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now present the chairman's message, which you can find in your annual report, your printed annual report and your online annual report. The Jamaican economy during 2024 was resilient in an environment of mixed economic outcomes. GDP contracted by approximately 0.7% due to the significant impact of Hurricane Beryl. This caused major disruptions, particularly in the agriculture, forestry, and fishing sectors, as well as the electricity and water supply and hotels and restaurant sectors. And these led to economic contractions of 3.5%, 0.8% in Q3 and Q4, respectively. Despite this, inflation and other economic indicators showed positive trends. Inflation peaked at 7.39% in January, but eased to 4.9% by the year end, within the Bank of Jamaica's 4 to 6% target range. The BOJ responded with 4 interest rate cuts, bringing the policy rate down to 6%, while the Jamaican dollar depreciated slightly by 0.94% year over year, influenced by BOJ's foreign exchange interventions. Additionally, the country also realized the lowest record of unemployment in history at 3.5%. In our overseas markets, Barbados, a new theater for us, recorded 4% economic growth led by tourism, construction, and business services. The United Kingdom's growth was constrained by inflation and fiscal challenges, while the United States maintained robust GDP growth and labor market vibrancy. Financially, the VM Group rebounded effectively, recording a net profit of $823 million compared to a loss of $375 million in 2023. Our strategic initiatives drove continued growth across key financial indicators. Total loans increased to $126 billion, up from $122 billion in 2023. The savings portfolio grew to $153 billion compared to $142 billion the previous year, while total assets expanded to $224 billion, surpassing the $214 billion reported in 2023. In the current economic environment, we continue to grapple with costs, but are convinced that leveraging our relatively new group holding structure will allow us to drive improved efficiency across all our strategic